So we were talking about the pancake thing with Chocho and Himawari.
Imagine that as a data book.
It's not only not in the manga, and you can't resonate with this whatsoever if you're a manga only reader. The only anime scene we can work with is a bad one to use as your reference for that line anyway. But it's regardless, let's just pretend it's the greatest one in the world. If you're relying on the anime or a novel or something that isn't the Boruto manga, it's just like, yeah, you're being lazy. You're admitting defeat, basically. Like, your manga is incomplete. Why are you doing this? Put this shit in the manga. If it's the Kokugan, just have Amado tell us that.
Like One Piece would do shit like that. Like, they'll give like critical bits of like lore that should be in the manga in like little data books post manga's release. And a lot of people are like really off about that. So, I mean, I get your example. I don't think it quite works because it's not that serious with the pancake thing. But like, what exactly is your issue with the pancake thing, by the way?
Oh, it doesn't resonate.
What do you mean?
I have no reason to care about pancakes in terms of Chocho or Himawari.
I think
to me, it's just filler.
Yeah, there's
like they never gave me a reason to care about the bond or their love for pancakes.
Number one, pancakes are delicious. But that aside,
well, I love pancakes, yes, but I meant in terms of Himawari and Chocho.
Yeah, I was like, does this guy have like an anti-pancake vibe? What's going on here?
Yes, I hate pancakes.
I despise
the French toast.
Tripped on a pancake when he was a kid. His PTSD. No, but
I love pancakes.
For me, how I read that was like, hey, master student, because she was training Himawari, and they're friends. There is a shared history there. The pancake thing is kind of irrelevant. Like it's like how the chip is the vehicle to get the sauce into your mouth. The pancake thing is a vehicle to get their shared history in your mind. It's just like, oh hey, like yeah, these characters, they have a bond. It's being expressed here. You get this a lot.
Agree, but I would have liked to have seen the bond. I would have liked to have seen them talk about pancakes in one of the first 10 chapters. I would have just liked to have seen more leading into it to make me care.
It's all perspective, so I can respect your perspective for sure.
For example, when Sasuke dies, or I guess right before he dies, Naruto asks him why he does all this. Sasuke says he doesn't know why, but then we get like especially in the manga, it shows like 100 different panels of everything we've seen between these two characters. Imagine if those 100 panels were the first time we ever saw those panels. Just wasn't in the manga. It doesn't mean anything to the audience at that point.
Well, at least in that case, I still think it means more because at least they're showing us, 100 scenes instead of just telling us one arbitrary scene. Like Sasuke said, I don't know why. I guess it's because I love pancakes. You'd be like, what? But like, hypothetically, if in that scene we got 100 panels of Himawari and Chocho eating pancakes together, like, all right, at least they're showing me.
Yeah, but I feel like something like that doesn't need to be shown. I do agree with show don't tell in most cases, but I think how important the thing is matters. That's what context would matter. But in the case of Sasuke, I think you're talking about like the crystal ice mirror scene. I'm not mad at it, but I think it's a little redundant to just show us stuff we already saw. We saw that. We know their connection and their bond. But what I think is being illustrated there is like Sasuke has feelings for Naruto that he doesn't like show outwardly, but inside in his own internal process is like, we understand, hey, this is the reason why he did it because he does care about Naruto. I think that's the point of showing those like flashbacks. But I think that could have been done without that because we already know that. That scene where like at the end where Sasuke turns away from Naruto and Shippuden at the end of their fight, and like all you see is like a tear come down. There's not some flashback of like, everything that happens. Ironically, I do think there is one, but that's not what I'm talking about. But there's not like when he like sees Naruto's like memories or whatever, feelings or whatever. But like he like turns his head and like a tear comes down. That was like a visual way of depicting what Sasuke's feeling without actually showing it to us, which I think is kind of better, given the fact that one, the series has like problems with flashbacks, and then two, I think it's a little bit more sophisticated. It's not like holding our hand through, oh well, here's why Sasuke has sacrificed himself because all the shit. We even to the writing, Sasuke, how he presents towards Naruto outwardly, but show us subtly, like the moment where like he and Naruto are training. There's a camaraderie there to run up the tree. And I think Naruto's arm was around Sasuke's shoulder. Like, we finally made it all the way to the top. And like they're having like this little brotherly rivalry. We're like eating food together. That I think is enough. Or like when Sasuke walks past when they're kids, that flashback they show like 1,000,000,000 times. Sasuke's at the dock, or Naruto's at the dock, one of them at the dock, one of them walks past. They say nothing to each other, they just look at each other, walk away and smile. That speaks volumes without ever having to show anything. I think that would have been better. And I think on a lower scale, the pancake thing is just that. It's just to illustrate like they had a connection or a bond. It was like a little passing thing. You even see that with like when Naruto shows up and he's like, because I'm in Sage Mode, I can sense everyone. Is Kakashi out of the village? Tsunade just turns away, says nothing. I see. Go get him like that right there. Like they should have her like flashback to like when she realized like, nah, bro, like that was sophisticated. That's what I mean. But yeah.
The problem with the pancake thing is that it's trying to reference back to a scene we never got. It's just trying to be a callback, as opposed to the Land of Waves, which isn't trying to do that. The line, I don't know why, in reference to the answer of the question, why did you do this? It works in perfect contrast to Sasuke thinking about the memories, which also works for later, paralleling Naruto thinking, even though we've never said it, we've always been friends. We didn't get that flashback for when Naruto said it. We didn't need it because Sasuke got it here. The line, I don't know why, if you got that without the flashbacks, it just doesn't work.
I'm not saying showing the flashback is bad. I'm saying there's a better way to do it. They did it. I think it's fine to do it. I think there's a more sophisticated way to do it, given the examples that it gave. I just don't think it was like a necessity. In the same way, I don't think like you necessarily need to show like them, going to IHOP.
Okay, I think you're making two different arguments then. Saying it's redundant would only apply to the way they did it. But if you're saying they should have done it a different way, or there's a better way to do it, then the redundancy is just a different argument.
I don't have a problem with them doing it. If they did it, it's fine. I didn't like get uppity about it. But I think there was more sophisticated ways of doing it, and I gave examples of those. We know what that bond is. Like everything they showed is what we saw already. So like, why do that again?
Well, and that's kind of my point though with the pancake thing is, like you said, it's things we saw. I never saw Chocho and Himawari really. Like, yeah, we saw like one conversation with them before. I never saw them talk about pancakes. I never saw them at a pancake shop talking as friends. We just didn't really get the scenes with them together. We just saw them training. It's implied they trained over the time skip, but I didn't get to experience it with them. Whereas Naruto and Sasuke there, well, I experienced that bond because, well, we watched them train together and do those things. So
it's both aspects. We're not getting either aspect. One, we're not getting a flashback to the scene that we never saw, and two, we're not seeing scenes in the first place. If we got either or, then it would be justifiable. We didn't get either.
But you guys agree like the point of this is to show that there is a shared connection that they've had.
Yeah, and I would have liked to have seen the connection as my point.
So that's where we disagree. I think the point is to just re-emphasize their shared connection, and that ought to be enough. The way in which they're doing it, which is the whole pancake house thing, I think it's so relevant that even if they gave it to me, I'd be wasting time in the like space in the manga. And I would prefer to see other things like the fight. Like if they flash back and showed me that, like I'll be like, yo, what are you doing, bro? Like
what I would have done for me at least is the flashback would be one panel realistically, but more realistically, just in like, for example, chapter 1, you could have just had them in a pancake shop and just had a quick line about pancakes in that first chapter when we got them
and that would have made this moment what for you? Like more
marginally better.
Emotionally resonant is what it means.
Okay.
I say marginally because I still don't care. I don't care about Himawari and Chocho right now.
Because it's not enough. That's just showing it isn't enough to make us care.
Like this, that's what I'm saying. There's no scenario in which you care about this. Because that's not like you caring about it's not the point. Like that's why it's something so like minute. If it was like, hey, don't forget you promised to tell me about why you believe your father's still alive and some theory she had about some conspiracy. It's like, yeah, I'm like, whoa. But the pancake thing, it's just a vehicle to hey, they have a shared history, and this is a big moment for Himawari and Chocho, to be fair. And it's just to illustrate the same thing with Naruto, like I said with the whole Kakashi thing, where he like shows up and he has to like part ways with like almost like a mentor figure or like my security blanket is here, and now I've like matured as a character, or I've reached a certain state or status as a character in the series to where I'm parting ways with that security or that comfort, and now I'm about to like enter into something unknown or something scary. I think that's the purpose of this. I think the pancake thing is like largely irrelevant, and like you say, you wouldn't care either way. So if they did it the way you wanted to, you still wouldn't care about
Yeah, and
specifically what they're
I
talking
say
about.
that because part of it, because of personal preference. I think throughout all of part one, even in the manga, I just wasn't given enough reason to care about Chocho. Himawari, I liked her personality. That's mostly in the anime. I like her personality in the anime enough, but even then, the manga didn't give me an actual reason to care about them. So it's going to be hard to win me over in this case, just because it's been 91 chapters total, and it's like you're just now trying to make me try a little bit harder, but I'm just going to be a tough customer in that regard, and I recognize that.
Yeah, it's like
But
Chocho's basically saying like, make sure you come back.
yes,
Exactly.
She's saying it in a way that shows this like interpersonal connection that they have. So this is like hyper specific to them and their bond, and I think that's what that's meant to re-illustrate. And I would say illustrate in general, because although they're training together,
yeah,
this just shows that there's a deeper connection there. It does work. But
exactly. It's not a re-illustration; it's the illustration. It's the first time.
Yeah,
yeah,
because
I
it's
think it
not
does
about
work.
the pancake. It's about getting to where it's not on the nose dialogue of saying "don't die." Have you ever read Tokyo Ghoul, Mello? Watched it?
No, it's like
Nothing?
one episode.
Okay.
Got it on
I'll
the
keep it
chairs.
as non-spoiler as possible. There's a scene where one character wants to die, like as a
Mhm.
sacrifice, like a heroic sacrifice, and another character tells that character something along the lines of, "I'll see you again soon." And because of that, that first character that wants to go out like a heroic sacrifice is like angry because now he can't do that. That's in a
Yeah.
similar way what this scene is doing. It's not about the pancakes, it's about going to the restaurant that isn't open yet. The only way she can do that is if she lives long enough for the restaurant to open. So she can't die here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the pancake stuff doesn't actually matter, and you don't actually need to see that happen, that conversation happen, because the pancakes are irrelevant. It's the underlying message that's trying to be disseminated that's irrelevant,
Yeah, but I don't
right?
think it's the message that's supposed to be significant. It's supposed to be the bond. It's the difference between, again, seeing it versus showing it. We know Naruto and Sasuke are friends in part one. We know Shikamaru and Shoji are friends. Before the
It's
Sasuke
strengthening my
retrieval
position.
mission, we care
I agree
more
with
about
all
Naruto
this.
and Sasuke.
I agree with all this. Yeah, like I don't think showing them having a conversation about going to a pancake house at some point is even relevant, because the
No.
pancakes aren't relevant.
Yeah, we
It's
don't
the
need the
underlying stuff
pancakes.
that's the point.
What we
The
need
pancakes
is what they
dialogue is a vehicle.
what we need
That's
is
what
what
I've
they
been
give us in
saying
the
this entire
scene.
time.
I think doing it
That's what
here
I'm saying.
is
Yeah.
too late. They should have already had this connection established, regardless of the pancake line.
But remember, that wouldn't work, because we're talking about the underlying points. She's about to engage in like a life or death battle, seemingly like she's about to get devoured. So like, if the idea is like, hey, come back, hey, like you need to survive this, she needs to be in a situation that survivability is low, and she hadn't been in that situation directly up until this point. So that's why it being here is important.
No, what he's saying is the point is the bond. We should have just felt the bond. We should have witnessed the bond more before this point.
Wait, why?
So you care
Okay,
about the bond.
what about this? Not
Wait,
just from
but they're
Himawari's
establishing
perspective. I don't know
it
why
here.
Chocho cares whether or not Himawari lives here. I know she does. I don't know why, because I don't know what this friendship means to Chocho.
What do you mean you don't know why?
And why beyond why Chocho would want any other random person in the village to be alive?
Yeah, I know that Chocho's friends with Himawari in the same way she's friends with Inojin. What's the difference between that connection for Chocho? What does Himawari specifically mean to Chocho?
Uniquely from Inojin and uniquely from Shikadai.
Wait, what does Shikadai and Inojin mean to Chocho?
Yeah, well, I want to know. So now
Exactly. But we
Okay,
have a little
so-
bit more to say, that we've witnessed them together from the beginning. Not much, but seen it a little bit longer.
It's been
And-
established when they were training together that they've been doing that more than once. So we don't know how long they've had that connection with one another. So there's that. And then also, when Shikadai is so quickly able to process things and then like break off from Himawari because he understands he's going to be a hindrance, she's emotional about it. And that's illustrating the importance of Himawari to her. So she's like in denial about everything up until that point where she needs to be convinced. And then she tries to like, hey, come make sure you get your ass back here. She has to like accept parting with. This is what I mean, like the security blanket being like removed from Himawari and she's going into the unknown for the first time. And to a degree, something similar, like the ability for like a teacher to let go of their student and let them like leave the nest almost. It's the same kind of thing, but in a different way for each character. But I think all of that is excellently illustrated in this chapter for Chocho and when they're training in TBV earlier.
It's like what you just said, though. You just said that we don't know how long they've been friends or what that means. We know it means something to the characters, but it means more to the characters than it does to the audience. And we can't just assume the characters' feelings onto ourselves. For example, we know that Chocho cares about Team 10 because it's their team. Denki cares about his team. Is that the same level of care? Well, what does that mean to Denki just because they're on the same team? We can just apply all these things.
But what I'm saying is those questions aren't answerable because you'll never be able to measure the depths of someone's concern for another person. So why ask the question?
Chocho has a noticeably greater response about Himawari than Shikadai. Shikadai is kind of just, I'm going to meme here and just be like, oh, whatever, yeah, let's ditch her, okay? Chocho's like, no, let's stay, okay? So we can see that seemingly Chocho might care more. Now, by comparison, Rock Lee's relationship with Guy and Neji's relationship with Guy. First glance, we can already see Rock Lee has a much more emotional bond to Guy than Neji does. The difference to me is we see why with Rock Lee. We got the backstory. We know exactly why Guy means so much to Rock Lee and vice versa. Versus Neji, we don't get that. They're not as close for obvious reasons. Because Neji didn't need Guy the way Lee did. So Guy wasn't there for Neji in the same way he was for Lee. In this case, though, with Chocho, I can say, oh, it's too soon. It's not like the intro scene to them where we're just saying, oh, they're emotional. We're going to get why later on. It's kind of like we've already seen them together. And now for the first time, out of nowhere, we're getting this emotional thing. And we still don't know why this is the case. Maybe we'll get more down the line, but I feel like if we're going to do this callback, I would have liked to have known more sooner, but that's just me.
I can respect that. It's just, there's a deeper depth between those two characters, Lee and Guy, that's not present in Himawari and Chocho. I don't even think they're trying to illustrate that level of depth, but what they are trying to illustrate that there is depth. And I think they've done an excellent job doing so. They did it when they got first introduced when they're training, when she's in the battlefield and Jura is like talking about the Nine Tails. She's in denial about that for like Himawari, like, don't listen to this guy. Like, he's some creep. Like, we'll protect you. Like, she's consistently saying things or illustrating things in a way that shows that she has concern and she's trying to consult Himawari. Like, even Inojin goes like crazy. He almost dies for her. Like, they are going out of their way to clearly show that not only Chocho, but Team 10 in general, even Shikadai.
But even with Inojin,
have like,
we don't know why
concern.
Inojin would go that far.
We don't know why he cares. We just know that he does.
With Sasuke, for example, we got the "you ask me why, oh, how should I know?" And then it kind of shows us why. We've yet to get the why behind. Now, you could say, oh, in the anime, Himawari helped Inojin get his artistic skills back and whatnot. That's not in the manga. In the manga, we don't know why Inojin cares that much about Himawari.
The sophistication of sophisticated writing. They're not going to hold your hand and walk you through, hey, like, Inojin sacrifices himself for Himawari. We don't know specifically why. We don't need to. This is like human engagement. Like, if I see somebody, like, a child falls and some guy walks up and like picks him back up and like gives him a hug, like, I don't need to know why he did that. I can infer based upon the actions that the person did why he did that, and I think that ought to be enough because that's how life works. Like, I don't think, if in fact, if they told me specifically, I'd be insulted. Like, obviously they care about her. She's a comrade. She just, like, she lost her parents and she's like spending time with them. Yeah, these are things like I can imply, but I think the implications from me is the point. Like, they want me to do that. They're not going to outright tell you. That's just not how that goes. Like, Chocho cares, Inojin cares, Shikadai cares. That, like, why they care, is that even relevant? Like,
but I can't relate to it then. if I don't know the why.
You can't wait. You can't relate to someone caring about another person.
I can't relate to
To
someone
me-
else caring
understanding
about
why?
someone else if I don't know those two characters or that connection. No, I need to see the connection.
No, it's the expression of human emotion. It's the expression of the human condition. Like, what do you mean? Like, I don't need to the specificity of why, like intricate details of why you care about that
I
person.
can care on the most basic levels of human empathy, but I can't relate to that.
I think the big thing for me to focus on
disconnect.
is the uniqueness of it. There's no uniqueness to Inogen and Himawari's bond, to Chocho and Himawari's bond, as far as we're aware. Whereas for Naruto, for example, I understand this is ridiculously extreme, but there is a clear uniqueness between Naruto's bond with Sasuke, Sakura, and Kakashi, respectively. Kakashi's obvious because he's the sensei, and Sakura's the girl he likes, and blah, blah, but you get the point. There's a clear uniqueness between their bond. Why each of the characters cares about the other one of the team is for uniquely different reasons. They have a unique bond between them. As far as we know, there is no uniqueness between the bond of any of these characters on Team 10 here. And I would like that because it establishes what makes each character distinct.
Nice try, Mello.
It's so interesting because you're the villain. You're Jura asking why they're willing to sacrifice themselves for somebody. You're trying to figure it out.
Yes. And Jura is my favorite character of Team Vortex.
And I think that dialogue is in the series for a reason, for the reasons I'm illustrating, because they are new entities and they don't understand the human condition. So they don't understand, without having specifically being told, the nuances and complexities of a connection or a bond. You know that there is a bond, but you don't need to know specifically why. And I think you're falling into what Kishimoto's like trying to illustrate, and it's like super funny. Like, yeah, like it doesn't need to be explained to you in detail, because if you have those lived experiences as a person, you understand without needing to know the specificity of it.
Let me ask you a different question then. Okay, you could say you are able to care regardless if you know why the bond is the way it is, but would you care more if you fully understood their bond? You knew exactly why each character cared about the other. Would you care more as a reader, or would you truly be indifferent if Chocho just says, "That's my friend," versus showing us throughout the story why they're friends? Would you care differently between those two situations?
With more context is going to, the simple answer is yes, because I would have more context. But we start with me caring, and then we.
Okay, that's fine, but you would care more.
Yeah.
So in this case, regardless of what my starting point is, I want to care more than I do about their bond. And I think the way to do that is to give me more behind their bond. Want that.
That's not true. Because you literally said if they did the thing that you said that they should do, you wouldn't care.
Because what I said, because that was under the context of them doing a pretty minimal amount for this. It would make me care a little bit more, absolutely. It wouldn't make me fall in love and make my favorite bond in the series by any means at all. I'm starting with a low boundary, and I said that's my personal bias. But the point is, it would raise, and the more you give me, the more it will raise.
What I'm saying is they've done the adequate work to establish the connection between these characters. Like,
well, we're not.
We know that they are connected.
So real quick, let me complete the thought. They've done the adequate work to what I said. The difference here is just a perspective thing. You think they should do more than what they did, and I think they did enough. And that's kind of just because, like, I'll give you an example, right? If there's like a puppy drowning, and a guy like rushes out to save the puppy, right? Do I need to know why he did that in order for me to care about what happened with the puppy, that situation, to look at that, what happened,
and feel something from that? If the story's revolving around that, then yes. Rather than something driving the story forward.
So the story's revolving. Yeah. Okay. So say the story's about a puppy, and the puppy falls in the river, and some random guy comes out and then jumps in and saves the puppy.
So then in that case, you're either going to have an underlying reason why something about puppies or saving a life matters to the character, or as a result of saving that puppy, we're going to establish a bond that is integral for the rest of the story, or perhaps both.
But the rest of the story is future tense. We're talking about like feeling things in the present.
But in this case, we're not in terms of this bond. The puppy's already been saved in this case. Like we're halfway through their bond. They've been there for 3 years.
No.
So they've already established it.
Yes, they established it. Yes. There's a
They
connection.
established that there is a bond, but not the specific nuances that makes their bond unique.
You don't need the nuances. You don't need. Hold on. Sorry. Let me rephrase this. From my perspective, you don't need the nuance. And from your perspective, you seem to need more nuance. And I think that at the crux of everything, we just have a different approach. My thing is when I see the puppy saved, I'm scared that the puppy's drowning. I'm scared that the man might go down with the puppy. I'm feeling things throughout this entire process. And then when the puppy's finally saved, I don't care why he did what he did. I can assume why he did what he did, right? That could be completely different. Maybe he wanted to go for a swim and save something. I don't fucking know. People are weird, but it might not be out of empathy or love. It could have been something completely different than what I think, but what I think is irrelevant. It's like a rich person who donates to a charity. I don't fucking care why they did it. Tax write-off, who cares? I know that people got help. I don't need to know the specificities of like the intent behind the donation or the intent behind the act itself. I just know the act itself occurred. And I know that there was a benefit had if it was had. So, and that I think is a real human experience. And again, you're playing into what I think Kishimoto is trying to illustrate through Jura and the Shinju, that they don't have that human experience. So they don't understand that. But you do, which is confusing me. But we can have a difference of opinion. It's fine.
So if we're going with what's adequate, then in my opinion, you could disagree. That's just going with minimal writing, which almost rushes through the story. I think you need to see the character's starting position in order to understand their development, why they develop, to understand that growth. And that will lead you to the stakes, as well as the themes or lesson of the story, which I think is what you care about in the art.
If this was the first time we saw anything from these characters, I'd agree with you. They've been establishing this over the course of damn near a year. I don't know what else to say.
I don't think they've been establishing
this.
They've just been showing it, that it is there. That's like saying they've been building Shikamaru and Shoji's friendship before the Sasuke retrieval mission.
Whatever. Use whatever terminology you want. Showing it, fine. I'll switch words. They've been illustrating it, showing it. If you don't want to use establish, my point stands that they've done the work. Now, so it's not a matter of have they done the work. The thing is they have done it. So then now it's like, okay, from your subjective viewpoint, have they done enough? But the work is done. And from my viewpoint, they've done plenty. And from yours, it seems that they haven't.
I think it's not about a waste of time. It's about achieving maximal impact from every scene that you can, and being able to justify it with your time, which would get into pacing. But in terms of justifying it with the time, which is pacing, which it comes down to the interpretation. You are going for the more.
Do you want them to spend more? You want them to spend more fucking time on Shoujo and Himawari, or do you think, given the medium in which they're delivering the manga monthly release, the pace at which they're going, like they did it in a way that's really efficient and adequate?
Again, that's rushing through the story to do the bare minimum, which in my opinion is lazy writing, because you care, but they're not making you care. You care passively, automatically, because you have basic human empathy. In my opinion, that's the bare minimum. That's lazy writing. They're not going above and beyond to do anything beyond that.
I don't understand. They've established the stakes for these characters. They've established, showed. We'll use that. We'll use whatever terminology you want to use. These characters, at a certain point, again, it just keeps coming back to perspective. I'm not even arguing with you at this point. Like, we just disagree. It's just perspective. It's not like some objective truth. Like, either you are feeling these characters at this point in the story, or you aren't. Either you feel like they've established or done enough work or showed enough of their connection up until this point, or you don't. But my thing is, they have done it. It's just, how much do you care? Now, if they hadn't done it, then you have an argument with, like, then we have something to talk about. But it's just a subjective thing. I can't argue your opinion.
Yeah. It's not just...
All I can do is try to convince you, and it's not going to work. So
it's not objective stakes in the world. It's more so for the character selfishly as well as the audience. So something such as small as a character losing their job can matter more to me if the writer makes me care than an entire city being destroyed. I don't care if Flopalopolis is destroyed if the main character I've been following for 5 seasons loses their job and they have kids and etc. etc. That makes me care more, even if it is quote unquote lower stakes.
What about this event, situation, context don't you care about?
In terms of the Himawari stuff?
Yeah. Himawari situation, Chocho, Team 10, like what don't you care about?
Just the connection
I understand
between
why.
Himawari and the rest of the characters, really.
Sorry, can you repeat that?
I don't know why the characters feel the way they do, and I think we should to achieve more maximum impact or emotional resonance.
Why uniquely again?
Yeah.
Because beyond just their teammates, that applies to any other team. There's nothing unique about that bond.
This goes back to what Kamui was saying about Team 7 to add on to that. Yes, Naruto and Kakashi have the bond between teacher and student, but they don't just stop there at that surface level thing that we know exists. They go beyond that to establish an actual bond between these two characters.
Same with Jiraiya and Naruto, because at face value, it's the same thing, teacher and student. But there's a clear difference between Kakashi and Naruto. Hell, Ebisu and Naruto for a moment is teacher and student. Iruka and Naruto's teacher and student. But in each case, there's a difference between each bond. Ebisu's a very weak bond, obviously, so he's the outlier here. And we have a different reason to care about each and every one of Naruto's relationships with 3 different sensei.
It's not just
as far as this.
It's not in terms of like that. It's in terms of how much you should care. You should care more about Jiraiya and Naruto than you should about Ebisu and Naruto, despite it being the same relationship. And it's not just a waste of time. I think it's necessary for the story.
I guess we're just making statements because you're not going to convince me, and I'm not going to convince you. I don't know what else to say.
Well, that's fine. I don't think it's about convincing, just about getting our points out there.
I can respect that. It's like
I don't remember how I first got into this anymore.
It's like Naruto and Jiraiya. Like there was a moment where like you have to establish over a course of time in the early stages, like their dynamic, their relationship.
But why is that not a waste of time?
But they started that in part 1. They didn't start that in part 2, and then immediately cut to Jiraiya versus Pain.
But like, did you consider that a waste of time?
Or what? I'm sorry. I'm getting like two. We both said something.
Oh, sorry.
So, I guess I said it first, or I don't know. Oodie, what was yours in reference to the waste of time?
Seeing the establishment between the bond of Jiraiya and Naruto on screen, rather than just knowing.
Okay, that'll coincide with what I'm saying. Okay. So, as a hypothetical, we saw in part 1 the establishment and forging of Naruto and Jiraiya's bond. Then there's a time skip, and we get a little bit more, and then Jiraiya dies versus Pain, and then we have Naruto's reaction. For Two Blue Vortex, this bond starts with the time skip, so there's no part 1 bond building in real time. And then we get even though Inojin doesn't actually die in the end, we get the situation that would be somewhat similar to Jiraiya dying versus Pain. Inojin basically dies but gets saved, and Chocho's worried Himawari's gonna die. So we're kind of just jumping to that endpoint without spending the time with the characters to grow the bond on screen for us. So we're being told the bond, but we're not experiencing the bond, if maybe that's a good way to put it.
So
okay.
let's.
So two things really quick.
Yeah,
2 things. This goes back to like the Rock Lee guy thing, right? Himawari, I know this is incredible to believe, it's not the main character. Okay, like
that's
Naruto
she could be the 2 in Two Blue Vortex, but we don't know.
Yeah, it's arguable.
Well, just time of recording. Like she's not the main character, right? So in the case of like Naruto and Jiraiya, obviously the main character is going to have more screen time to even have anything established, and there's going to be like a deeper depth between those 2 characters that they're trying to weave into the story, right? Now, him being a side character, right? She is going to have limited time, which she has up until this point, the entire series. So they're doing that just on a lower scale because she is not as much relevance up until this point. But they're just like kind
Well,
of
then what
establishing
about
it.
Shikamaru and Asuma or Rock Lee and Guy?
Yeah, they have like entire segments in the series that's dedicated to them.
That's what they did with Himawari. We've had like 4 monthly chapters dedicated to Himawari.
This moment here, this is where we're having like the major, like this would be like the equivalent of them with like Asuma's death and Shikamaru and like Rock Lee and Guy. This will be the equivalent.
Yeah.
She like turns up and all this stuff. Everything else is just kind of like build up towards it. And this is why I keep saying you do see the concern. They do the work. You keep like periodic. This is like if again, if they just started doing it now, you'd have an argument. But they've established things coming out of a time skip. That's just the course that they chose to go down in terms of like writing.
So what about this?
Let me ask you a different question.
Okay, go ahead, Kamui.
Or you can do yours first.
Okay.
No, sorry. Well, we started at a similar time.
Well, I started first, objectively speaking, but whatever. Okay.
Discord delay.
It's like it's just like when like you come out of a time skip, and then like someone like learns like a new technique or some shit, right? Like Luffy comes out as like a fire hit punch or something. Like how the fuck? When I didn't see him train it to do that. I don't know, like, right? But I see him do. I don't need that context. I can like imply, like, figure, like, okay, he did X, Y, and Z to get. It's similar to.
Well, the jutsu's not supposed to emotionally resonate. It's just the jutsu.
Well, that's why I used this particular. I don't know if you watch One Piece, but this fire punch is linked to his brother, and something happens to his brother. His brother had fire powers, so like it is actually like very relevant.
But then we're understanding the context there still. Why it matters to Luffy, why he developed this. We're going into it with that knowledge.
So the brother thing probably was relevant before he created the jutsu,
and the audience knew that.
Yeah, that's why I say it's not like a one-to-one thing. But what I'm saying is there's information, like there are other techniques that you can use, or whatever the case may be, right? But that's my overall point, right? That the method in which they chose to write was coming out of a time skip. They already did not establish things in part 1 between these particular characters. She wasn't in the field. She's not of age in her brother's age group to be friends with his friends. And then we come out of the time skip, and they're letting you know, hey, here's the landscape. They're establishing the landscape. And then they do that in particular for these characters and their connection by showing what they did periodically throughout this entire calendar year. Building up into this particular point where they're talking about pancakes, but it's not about pancakes. It's like we established this underlying bond and connection that's been brewing for the course of 11 chapters leading up into this point. So they made a choice to create a connection between these particular characters, right? That wasn't there pre-time skip, right? So moving forwards, they need to like do the work to establish that, and I think they did. So they had a choice. They made a choice, and then they did the work to establish the bonds between those characters that they chose to pair up. And I think it culminated to a certain degree with the seemingly death of Inojin, and then the dialogue between Chocho and her like reluctance to leave her friend, and then also the dialogue is echoed. The notion, the theme, the whatever, the thematics is referenced through like Jura and Hirai. Like, why are they doing this? Well, you're not a human. You don't fucking know. You don't understand bonds and connections. You like they want specific answers. That's why they want to devour to get data and information. If I devour you, I'll find out. Well, a human wouldn't need to find out why that person jumped in and saved that puppy. I just know like I care about life and that puppy lived. It was an act of kindness. Never mind his intent behind it. But you don't need that. That's all I'm saying.
So for me, it's the fact that they're essentially introducing this new information in what's supposed to be this emotional scene where it's just scratching the logic side of my brain, breaking my immersion. From what I understood up to this point, Himawari and Chocho had the bond of teacher and student, not the bond of friends to the point that they're willing to sacrifice their lives to each other. So to get this new information that Chocho cares this much.
You're wrong.
Go ahead.
You're already wrong. She's literally conveying very emotional shit to Team 10 about her father. Like she literally like, I've never told anybody this before. She doesn't even like relate the shit to her brother or anybody else. Like she's like talking about like seemingly her parents' death or whatever, but she like doesn't think that they're dead. That's establishing a deeper connection than this teacher and student. And then giving Himawari's Chocho's like outward disapproval of anything like harm coming towards Himawari. That's also I don't know. I guess we're just like going back and forth at this point. Like,
Sure.
I'll ask you this first, then. By comparison, which bond did you care more about? Shikamaru and Asuma, especially in reference to when Asuma died, or either Chocho and Himawari or Inojin and Himawari? Pick. I don't care which you pick. Which bond did you care more about, and why? After you pick.
Yeah. So I want to say before I answer your question that your questions are already loaded as hell.
Yeah.
Right. Like it's already loaded because you already know my answer is gonna be Shikamaru. And
yeah, and that's why I'm allow you to explain why.
Yeah. So my point is not that the degree in which I care, right? It's just that I do care. That's my point. And I think,
and I should say, when I say I don't care, part of that is semantics of my speech. It's to say I don't care as much as I feel I should. It's not to say that I care 0%. 5% is caring. But I'm saying is I want to care 80%, 100%. I want to care like Shikamaru and Asuma. That's really what I mean.
Well, that, and I understand, but that alters the entire argument that I'm.
Yeah, I agree, and that's fine. But
for the last 20 minutes, yeah, because like, yeah.
When we say like they don't give us enough reason to care, and I understand that's just being literal. What we really mean is they don't give us enough reason to care enough. But yes, we literally care to the bare minimum, but it's a story. Do you want everyone to care the bare minimum possible about every little thing? No, you want them to care as much as you can. So getting back to Shikamaru and Asuma, what for you makes that bond more careable compared to Inojin and Himawari?
Well, for me, I don't care very much about Asuma as a character, so his death is like irrelevant to me. But I do care a lot about Shikamaru as a character, and so to see his like reaction is when me and my mom went to a funeral for my auntie that I never met. My mom cried, so I cried because she cried, but I wasn't crying for my aunt. I never met her, as unfortunate as that sounds. So to see someone you care about,
it's empathy.
Yeah, to see someone you care about like hurt, that's why I care. So when I see like I care about Shikamaru's character, I'm invested. So when he has that conversation with his father, and his father like just on a man like on a masculine level just gives him permission to like because as a man there's like these walls that you have up. Not supposed to show emotion. You're supposed to be like stoic and blah blah blah. But for another man, his own father to give him permission to let those walls down and feel, that was deep, and I felt that from that character.
I agree. It was a great scene. It's anime only, sadly, but it was a very good scene.
Yeah.
So now I'm gonna ask two separate questions.
Boy.
One is the reaction of Himawari by comparison to Shikamaru. How do you feel about their distinct reactions? Do you think Shikamaru's had a more impactful reaction versus Himawari, or vice versa? And then the second question after.
I think Shikamaru's, and again, your question is so loaded, bro. But again, Shikamaru's is definitely more impactful, but there's a reason for that because he's dealing with the loss, whereas Himawari's not dealing with like the death.
Well, she was supposed to be. She saved the loss by healing him after the fact, but initially her rage is Inojin allegedly dead. So that's the reaction we're starting with.
Yeah, we already saw that emotional outburst. That's why she's enraged to begin with. Like she cries, and like I felt that for her because I feel for the character of Himawari. That's like fucking little baby Hima. Like yeah, like to see her in that situation is like fucked. Yeah, I cared about that, but like as like. Again, for all the reasons I mentioned, it's like a deeper connection because I've had more time with Shikamaru. Yeah.
And that's my point. we didn't get the time with any of these 4 characters. So it's a lot harder for us to care on the same level
You've already
because
made
of
this
that.
point. Because when you ask me, like, with more, basically, essentially, with more information, would I care more? I already answered that. Yeah, I would care more. But it doesn't mean I don't
Yeah.
care. It doesn't mean I don't care deeply. It just means I would care more. So I've already answered that. So yeah, like I do care more about Shikamaru because I've had more time with him. I've seen like the trials and tribulations he's been through. But and just because I haven't seen very much from Hima doesn't mean I don't care deeply about the character. It just means I don't care as much about.
I agree.
Shikamaru.
So now I'm going to go to a different example, which is going to be Rock Lee and Guy. The same sorts of questions. Which bond did you care more about, Rock Lee and Guy's, or Gene and Himawari?
The second question, we already know the answer.
Yeah, it's Rock Lee.
Okay, so in their case, we actually haven't really spent more time with their bond on screen. We got one scene of their opening. They have the goofy cry thing, and then we don't really see a whole lot of them. We get, I guess, the Forest of Death. We get one flashback about the condition, and then pretty much all of the bond comes out in Rock Lee's fight with Gara. I guess we get more, but in terms of screen, it's like we got more in less time, would be my thing.
I want to say,
but
you just get more overall. I don't know what you're talking about. Like, you get more.
But the crazy thing with that one, though, it's not that we had a whole half a series to work with. It's just we just got all of it, like, quickly. That's the difference right there. But we didn't do that with Himawari,
Yeah, but like then we're getting to like, so you're like, it just scales of concern or care. Yeah, I care more about Shikamaru than I do about Rock Lee. I care more about Guy than I do about Asuma. I care more, like, the why I would give is that for Shikamaru, specifically for him, I've spent more time with him, right? But my why for Shikamaru, my concern for him, doesn't necessarily translate to my why with Rock Lee, which I think you're making the assumption that it does. For Rock Lee,
that's the point. Is you get a different why with Rock Lee. It wasn't the time you spent with him; it was something else.
Yeah. So so what I'm saying is, like, for me, like Rock Lee, like that idea of like just working hard and failing, and then like not like like just the whole flashback thing is really the thing, the crux of it, right? So like it kind of connected me on like a personal level, just trying to work and grind towards something and not like achieving it, but then also never giving up. So like, yeah, that's that fucking dude. Like, I rock with that fucking guy, right? But for Himawari, like, why do I even care about her? She just lost her fucking parents. She, like, her entire world has just been like switched upside down. And from the perspective of the people she cares about, like, they think she's probably a little loony because she thinks her father that everyone thinks is dead is gone. And she's like echoing a different sentiment. And that sentiment itself is a thing that she's never told anybody else. So how long have they been together for 3 years that some bond had developed to where she felt comfortable enough to even say that in that chapter? And then you follow that up with like Karama coming back, right? And then the connection and all the implications of that connection, like her lineage to like Kushina, and then like all like the errors of Uzumaki that you see. Like, there's like a lot of context with the character that I take into consideration that factors into my concern about the character. So when she does have that connection with the Chocho, like, hell yeah, like I really do deeply care, even though I do care more about other characters. Doesn't mean I don't care about her character. But the why changes. The why is different.
I'm gonna say something. Chat's gonna hate me for it. You might hate me for it, but I'm gonna say it.
I already hate you.
We know that Himawari had a loss, but this sounds crazy. We were never shown Himawari dealing with that loss, how she dealt with that loss, her reaction to that loss. We just got her. She almost seems happy. This sounds goofy, but it's just, I don't think they're dead. It's basically all we got. We never really experienced Himawari suffering, dealing with the loss.
This works in tandem to what you're saying after Boruto died in the
with a different subject.
Because you wanted to see those moments.
Sorry, like, you're doing the exact same thing. You're just switching subjects. Like, because now you need to specifically see like a young girl suffer for like the deaths of her.
But it's gonna make me care more.
but you ought not to ought not. I'm sorry, I'm talking like a loser. You don't you should necessarily need to see a person suffer to like look at it like, hey, that's a 12-year-old girl, probably younger at the time, who her parents are all gone. Her brother, who she thinks is her brother, is probably like super fucking stoic about it. Like, yeah, like I feel so bad for her. Like, fuck yeah, like that's fucked. And then like 3 years in the future, she's like almost like from outside perspectives is almost like, oh yeah, like one day I'll see mommy and daddy again. It's like, oh god, this poor kid. Like they think they're actually going to see the parents again. Like they're not taking her at her word. They're pitying her. I would imagine to a degree. It's like, okay, like whatever makes her feel better. It's sad, bro. I don't know what to tell you. Like I don't need to see her like balled up having depression or cry to like say that's probably a thing that happened. And that's what I've been saying this entire time. You don't need specificity to understand like the human condition, to like look at the situation and say that's a great thing that puppy got saved. I don't even know why specifically the man saved the puppy. The puppy is saved, god damn it, and he's okay too. Fuck yeah, victory. Oh, right. Or hey, a young child, a girl of the age of like what, like 9, 10, 11, whatever, single digits probably, just lost her mom and her dad. And I saw her with her mom and her dad. I saw her have those connections, those bonds throughout the course of the series. And I can imagine, and that's the point, to imagine, not be told or have your hand held to be shown everything, to just imagine the pain she must have went through in that situation.
But I
Like
think this is the
I don't know
difference
what to
between
say,
a
bro.
person and a story. In a story, you should show these things because, well, you're trying to tell a story. And let's just take a person who can't relate to Himawari. You need to show these things so that they can. I
Psychopath?
understand, like with this, it's simple human empathy.
A
So if you
psychopath?
take something that's not so drastic, just losing a job. Someone who has lost a job before will instantly get it. They will instantly resonate anyway. Someone who has never experienced it might be thinking, bro, just get a new job. They won't
Not
get it.
true.
But if you show their response, what they go through as a result of that job, what the consequences of losing that job are, and so on, then that person who has never lost a job will be able to get it. They will resonate, even though it doesn't pertain to their life. And
A
that's
lot of
the
that stuff, man.
difference.
A lot of that stuff, man, it's putting yourself in their shoes. If that shit happened to me, how would I feel? Like a lot of it is like overlaying yourself atop that person, but that is what it is. Like I don't need to have lost my job to know how I would feel. Like just the thought of losing my job, like fuck, I want to pay my bills. Like where would I live? Like holy fuck, like it's gonna set me back in my plans. Like the anxiety and the fear that comes with that. I don't need to actually have it done to feel that. And then look at that person who did have it done. Like fuck, I bet he's going through some shit. It's not if it's true that he's going through some shit. He might not give a fuck. Like shit, I hate this fucking. I'm so happy, right? That was me. Like if I fuck this shit, I'm out. Thank God. They might be thinking, oh man, poor guy. That is, the reality is not the point. The point is like the empathy that you feel when you see that shit. It's like, man, fuck, like that. Man, I bet he's really going through it. Like, so yeah, you don't have to have it happen to you in order to like empathize with it.
No, but like, okay, let me just make this ridiculously extreme then. You know, if you remove these elements from a story just at every step of the way, well, what do you have? You're fired, guy goes home, moves on, next day, wakes up, new job, continues on, nothing happened. There's no story being told without these nuances. If you remove every single one, I understand we're not removing every single aspect in the story. In this case, we're removing debating on one, but if you did it for every step of the way, there would be no story.
I mean, if you want to craft like the scenario in that specific way, then fine, it's empty and hollow. But you do acknowledge that there is nuance in this situation in the TBV manga, right?
Yes, and we're going to the extreme because the overall point, this is where this just really the disagreement is. Oodie and I want more. You think it's just fine and you're good with it. We want more. That's really what it just boils down to.
I said that 20 minutes ago, but yeah.
I agree. We're just presenting different things over and over again.
Kamui's asking ridiculous questions. I think Kamui's getting to a broader conversation, going outside of Boruto, reaching to like all of media, which I feel like you've basically just given your answer on. But do you think stories, when it comes to specific things that can be relatable to specific people, do you think they should try and give an effort to explain that to people who don't understand? Outside of losing your job, I think a more extreme situation, something unimaginable, something like PTSD from war.
That's my answer to your question.
Your answer is no. Okay,
because number one, you don't know who those people are, so you can't cater to them. That's number one.
Well, the author in this case would be writing it because they do understand it.
No, I mean, like, the idea is like, hey, I'm going to write my story or my characters or this event in such a way that helps people who can't empathize with something that they haven't experienced to indeed empathize with this situation. Those people that I don't even know who they are, what their situations are. It's just like it's like writing a story for a person you've never met. So what you would have to do then is just
every story is.
Exactly. I'll clarify. I'm not on a side on this one. I can argue either side. I think there's a really interesting conversation, so I don't think there's a wrong answer here.
Yeah.
So I think it's
conversation. Yeah. So my thing is, I'm not trying to like debate lore. I think it's an interesting conversation too. So I think one of the things that I'm seeing is like this idea, or this is my assumption, that there seems to be like, hey, the story must be written this way or presented this way. And I'm like, there's a multitude of ways of writing a story. That's why I mentioned like coming out of a time skip thing. Like it chose to do that way, right? Like if they planned it out, they could have established something at the end of part one. Like they've made a decision to do it, to write it this way. So like I'm looking at, okay, given the decision that was made, never mind if I like the writing style or the approach, given the decision that was made, did they do the work necessary to like establish some kind of connection or bond between these characters? And I keep saying like, yeah, the work is done. It just gets back to like, we have a disagreement in what we prefer in terms of quantity or whatever the case may be. But yeah, my answer is no. Like there's different writing styles. I wouldn't just assume they're going to use one in particular, because why? I don't know.
Sticking on this interesting angle, I think that Boruto's written for more or less all audiences. Do you think it's written for a specific type of audience? Outside of, obviously, it's shonen, it's meant for like little kids or whatever, but you know what I mean. It's not written with the intent of being written for example, with Himawari. It's not written for people who have lost their parents.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you said, outside of like the genre, I haven't even taken that thought. I haven't thought about that. I've given it no thought at all. So I couldn't answer that question.
With the idea that there will be people who can't directly relate to the idea of losing your parents with Himawari, sure, they can relate with basic human empathy, but do you think the author should, and again, I don't think there's any right or wrong answer here, do you think the author should try and make an effort for those who can't directly relate to something like that?
Well, I think I don't. Sorry, this is all right. I'm gonna try to answer this question like, so I might not disseminate this like as eloquently or as usual or whatever. Okay, I'm just gonna say what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
You have to take into consideration that the writer is human, in that in their mind they might not even be thinking about it in this deep way. They may be thinking or having like some idea, or even if it's like not true, of what humanity is and what people are. And so they write their series under that expectation that people will be able to identify with this, because this is a very real human experience. And I'm human, and people, right, are human too. So they don't need to be told things like this. They can feel things like this. And you can call that a flaw or whatever, but it is being written by a person. Not yeah. So that's the best way I kind of like off the top of my head know how to like answer that question. So when we say like, should you do this? I'm like, are you even thinking about that kind of person to even ask yourself, should you do it to begin with? Or, because if I was writing it, just me personally, obviously, it doesn't mean Kishimoto. I wouldn't even have thought about a person who couldn't empathize, like, because to me that's almost like a psychopath or whatever the case may be. Like I would have not even thought to, well, let me take this type of person into consideration. I would have like blanketly made like an assumption that most humans are this way, and I would have written my series with that understanding or that belief rather. And I think this is in my opinion, I think that's probably like the default for like most people. That just through lived experience, you have like an assumption of like how people are going to be. You don't just assume like people are just gonna crash into me or with their car or just walk up and like kill me. Like there's an expectation of people, even if you don't know them or care about them or you hate people, you still, no matter how much you want to not admit it, you have an expectation of what people are. And that might not match reality, but that's based off of past experiences that you're like assuming that person is going to be like that or whatever the case may be. And I think that is how a person would approach writing rather than let me take into consideration every little intricate nuance or these different types of people or personality disorders or whatever so that they can understand. I don't think that's my answer.
Interesting. Okay. So going off of that, I was thinking of the thing I was going to say after the thing I was going to say next, so I forgot the thing I was going to say next. Okay. I think it's in this context, it's the difference between general human empathy compared to really deep-rooted connecting to someone on a personal level through sympathy. Or it could be the other way around. I could be mixing up sympathy versus empathy.
Let's just double check the definition real quick before I say anything.
Sympathy is typically
so sympathy, feelings of pity and sorrow for someone else's misfortune. Empathy, the ability to understand and share the feelings of another.
So I can
you don't
feel
want to sympathize.
So I can feel bad for someone for something awful that's happened to them if they have
that's sympathy.
Yeah, exactly. So if they have like a medical condition, I can feel bad that they have that condition, but unless I share that condition, I can't fully understand everything they're going through. Take this in a story should they do something with that.
What I'm saying from my subjective viewpoint, which I've been arguing for, I don't need to have cancer to empathize with someone or what did you say? Fully feel?
Fully connect.
Sympathize would be the cancer patient.
Yeah, like I'm definitely not going to pity them because that's disrespectful. Wouldn't want that. Like you can't do anything with pity. What the fuck? Fuck your pity. I can't do anything with your pity. So I would never pity a person. That's rude. But I would empathize with them, and I don't need to have cancer personally. My uncle had cancer and died, and I know how that felt. So I'm not only just empathizing with that person, I'm empathizing with their family members. Like the connection, right? The context matters, right? But I'm imagining like there's someone who cares about this person that they're about to lose a person. Like it's complex. I don't. There's so many different elements there that I would take into consideration when I'm feeling or empathizing with that situation. And it's not just, oh, I need to directly have a connection to this person, what they're going through and what they're feeling in order for me to have this like really deep connection or feeling towards this person in their context or situation. Yeah, I don't think you need that level of depth at all. And I don't think you get that often in life. Like, I really don't. Like, that's the weird part about this conversation. Like, if you live life, you don't get this specificity of everything. We're highly emotional creatures. Like that's our thing. We have chemicals in our brain that's like firing off shit all the time, right? Well, even the way in which my inflection right now is highly emotional, right? Even though I'm not like, So like, never mind like the facts and figures and logic of it all, which sounds strange coming from me. You don't need the specificity in this case. You just need to feel. That's it. You feel it, man. Feel it, man. Yeah.
I think there is a different level of care because you've used this in both of your examples of even if it's not happening to you, if it's happening to someone you care about versus someone you don't care about. If my sister got cancer, I would care more than if my coworker got cancer. Even if it's the same exact thing. Even if it's the same level of basic human empathy, I would have a different level of sympathy because I care more about pre-established one person more than the other.
This just gets back to the Rock Lee guy, Shikamaru Asuma thing.
Maybe. Okay. Yeah. Well, I had one comparison of my own. Mine's hopefully a little bit more interesting. So This is actually a really interesting one. This isn't like a gotcha or anything, or like asking a loaded question. I don't think, anyways. So
Yeah, sure.
I'm gonna ask this in like the most unbiased way possible. Let me know if you think there's a better way to ask this, because I'm genuinely curious. So hypothetically, if instead of Jiraiya dying against Pain, and I'm gonna use an extreme example, if it was Ebisu who died against Pain, and we do know like Naruto and Ebisu have that connection. If Naruto has the same reaction to Ebisu's death as he did to Jiraiya's death, and we saw Naruto's reaction to the same degree, same amount, all of that, would that, in your opinion, would that first of all be as impactful for the audience, and two, would it be enough? What do you
think? Boy, Ebisu.
Yeah. Because in this case, it's about seeing Naruto's reaction. Because, like you said, you didn't care about Asuma, but you cared about Shikamaru.
Yeah. So there's a few ways I would answer this question. Number one, just off rip, I can't ascertain what's going to be enough for the audience because I am one member of that group.
Okay. Then just for you specifically, that's fine.
Yeah, it's for you. Okay. I thought he said for you, but I may have misheard.
Yeah. Okay. Just for me. It would matter to me because I care about Naruto. Yeah. So yeah, like
enough for you. Like, would you be satisfied with it, or would you just say, I care, but would you be like glad? Would you be like, yeah, that was great?
Would you care to the same degree?
In this, sorry, what?
Would you care to the same degree as you care now?
The same degree as compared to what?
As compared to
the actual Jiraiya death.
Yeah.
Oh no, I wouldn't.
Okay. And then would it be enough for you?
Like if Naruto like started breaking down or whatever, I wouldn't care. I mean, I would care because I care about Naruto.
Yeah.
But if it's like comparing his, Jiraiya and Ebisu, then I would care more about the Jiraiya thing because that gets back to what Kamui was saying. I have more data to work with, so there's more context there. In the same way, I care more about Shikamaru than I do Himawari, and Rock Lee than I do about Himawari in those particular instances.
This leading to the next thing, you might have changed your mind on this, but you did say you would consider scenes such as Himawari and Chocho or any of them bonding to be a waste of time. This is where I think the difference lies, because I don't think I did get your answer to why you wouldn't consider.
Sorry, what did I say?
That you would consider scenes of Himawari and Chocho bonding to be more or less a waste of time, like if they're at a pancake shop, and that's the
no, not necessarily. Sorry, that's not what I meant.
Okay, go ahead.
I think in that particular scene, them verbalizing it is fine.
You didn't know what we meant was before that scene.
Okay, so before that scene, all the stuff that happened, like leading up between the dynamics.
Yeah, just give
it. Yeah, so what I was saying is, let's just say we're gonna go with part 2 only because that's what we're working with, right? Then whether it's chapter 1, chapter 5, chapter 6, even chapter 7 is probably the latest we can get away with. I would have liked to have seen some more of their scenes. Maybe the pancake shop, for example. You have them bonding in the maybe they're talking about their favorite kind of like the Taiyaki scene with Kawaki in chapter 26 or whatever chapter it was. Have like a Himawari thing where that Chocho's showing her this new special pancake and Himawari loves it. Whatever you want to do.
The point is Vortex building up into to chapter 11. That's what I'm talking about.
Yes,
part 1.
So like imagine just some pancake shop scene, something that suits your fancy in any chapter, I guess, before chapter 8. So chapters 1 through 7.
If they show that, I would be fine with it.
Okay, that's what I was saying.
Yeah, that's fine. I don't care. But if that came before 11, if you're saying this is what I thought you were saying, if you needed to see it like illustrated, because you brought up the flashback thing, Sasuke like died in the thing or seemingly died, and he like flashback.
That one I would care more about with Inojin versus Chocho, in my opinion. I think that one would have been better served for Inojin. For Chocho, I think it would be better to have just gotten a normal ass scene of them together.
Yeah, sure. Bit of a I granted, I take what you said, but you didn't say that at the time. But yeah, I take what you said. So yeah, if it's on 11, I don't need to see that. They told me about it. I have enough prior to 11 to understand the context between these characters and the dynamic. and then I care about Himawari, and I can like feel through that. Yeah.
But would you? I mean, I feel like we've been dancing in circles with the same questions. If we had gotten that pancake scene, let's just say it was in chapter 5, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Would you care at least? Well, would you care more, or would you be like indifferent?
Well, I think the answer this, but in this case, I'll say you don't need a flashback when Chocho says this in chapter 11 or 10, whatever on. If they have that scene in the first place, it's just like the Naruto and Kakashi scene in the Pain arc, or Naruto and Tsunade, where they're talking about Kakashi. We don't see a flashback there, but because we know how much Naruto cares about Kakashi, we have that pre-established relationship going into it. We don't need a flashback. If Ebisu was the one who died in the village, Naruto's asking Tsunade about Ebisu, it can still hit, but it's not going to hit as hard as it would with Kakashi, because we know going into it, Naruto cares about Kakashi more.
But I'm not disagreeing with any of that. I mean, at least the last part of what you said, because like we already did the whole, if you have more information, would you care more? And I said, yeah. So like it's just the same thing, just with a different context.
The point of this was to say that you wouldn't need to show a flashback in this chapter 10 or 11 scene, whichever we're on. 11.
Like if you like what are you guys getting from visually seeing it that you're not getting from like reading it, like the description of it?
It's like, essentially it's not a lot more, but it's the same thing we said about like the Lee and Guy thing. It all occurred in one arc, but we got more scenes of them together. This is just it's more time with them because we're just literally seeing them together.
So I also think go ahead. If you had
I was gonna say, so it seems like you wanted to see like a scene where like she says, hey, you want to go to that new pancake place? You're like, oh yeah, sure, I love pancakes. And then
I would like to get more than that, but like if we're gonna go bare bones minimum, like even that is
like,
more.
Like just them like kind of like after their training or whatever, and then like she tells them about Naruto and Hinata, or Naruto, how she thinks he's alive or whatever, and then like maybe the subject, they break some ice with like a little chuckle or whatever. Like, hey, you go to that pancake place later, and it's like, oh yeah, sure. Would that be a good placement for it?
That would work too. And like I said, that's not a lot, but it's something, and it's enough to say, well, I would care more with that because it's something.
Something with
so the scene in chapter. Sorry, so the scene in chapter 11, it's not directly referencing something that you've seen, and there's nothing like anything beneficial that you're getting from like the visual depiction of this seemingly insignificant like conversation about pancakes. And we already established that even if they did that, you still wouldn't care. I know you gave an amendment, care very much about what happens. So I'm confused. Like even if they did it, you still wouldn't care.
That's because in part 1 we got nothing, and this was one small addition. If it was going to be my ideal state, we would have gotten just way more. Period. It would be in part 1. We'd be building this from the get-go.
So what if Chocho just said, "Make sure you come back alive"? Would you be fine with that?
So this is going to sound wild. I would have preferred that because from my perspective, it wouldn't feel like we're trying to force something greater. It's hard to explain. To me, that just feels like it's just very basic. It's weird because on one hand, that's not better. It's almost objectively worse, but I almost take it better because it doesn't feel like it's trying to be something more than it is, if that makes sense, maybe.
But
it feels like that scene knows it's nothing too deep. It literally is just die. But in the other one, it feels like it's calling back to a specific aspect of their bond that we never got.
But the underlying purpose, like what's the underlying purpose of Chocho saying that to Himawari? Regardless if she mentions pancakes or she just says come back alive, what's the underlying purpose?
The underlying purpose is to say Chocho doesn't want Himawari to die. Come back. I care about you.
There you go. It doesn't matter which way you take it. The point is the underlying purpose.
But the execution is different, and the execution is what makes you care at differing levels.
But that's what I'm saying. Like you said, like it's not like any really significant difference there. Like you said, it'll almost be worse. And then you also said even if they did the thing that you want them to do, you still wouldn't care very much.
Again, that's because I would have wanted them to have done this a long time ago. I'm also just not. I've never been a JoJo fan anyway, so I set this bias. I'm a tougher customer because of that. But if for Two Blue Vortex alone, I would have a better respect and a better care for the scene if they put more effort into Blue Vortex than they did, because it seems like they really just threw.
Like you,
Again,
like
I
you, said, you
said
don't care about Chocho. You don't like if they did what you want them to do, you still wouldn't care. Like and you are like you're acknowledging like the minute changes. They're not really. It's not a lot, but it's something. You know, I don't deny something, but it just seemed like you wouldn't care regardless about this. So I
But
don't have any clue why you argue like for a
it's funny.
perspective
It's funny
regarding
because
it
I
for
totally
the
get where
last
you're coming
hour.
from. But to
Yeah.
play devil's advocate, I say I wouldn't. I
And
don't
that's
think
what
I
I
would
think
care
you've been doing
regardless.
this entire
That might
time.
not be true. That might not be true though. Perhaps I actually would care, but it's hard for me to know that because I never got the reason to care. But if I got the reason, maybe I would care. I don't actually know because it never happened.